Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to this webinar. The European Defence Challenge, a part of the Assets Plus project, is a unique opportunity to bring together the emerging talent of European students and relevant actors from the industry, the academic world, and the organizations working for defence technology in Europe. Thank you all for being here today. The aim of Assets Plus is to build a sustainable human resources supply chain for the European defence industry. And the challenge is a valuable tool for industry in order to find the talent and for the students to have the chance to directly contact the key players of defence technology in Europe. There is a strong need for skilled workers, and there exists a lot of excellent opportunities for brilliant students that wish to develop a career in the defense industry. Remote everything? To what extent can unmanned assets interact with humans in the field for defense operations? More than 130 students registered to the challenge to answer this question, making intelligent proposals about new technologies or new ideas in the use of existing technologies. Only 25 of them have been selected among them and have been invited to participate in the second phase of the challenge. Congratulations to all of them, not only for the selected ones, because all of the proposals have been very high quality. Today, phase 2 starts, and the teams are invited to extend their proposals, including all kinds of details, up to the next 14th of April. Not only technological, but also social, economical, or ethical aspects are welcome. For sure, students will provide original and fresh views about technology and its use. So we are expecting very good works and essays from the students. And now it is also my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the event. Michel Bosco is Director of the EMBA in Space, Defense and Security at the University of Côte d'Azur. Michel, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this introduction, Mateo, and thank you to the Assets Plus network for inviting me to moderate this session. I was extremely pleased and very impressed by the various representatives that are going to speak to you this afternoon. I'm saying representatives because all of these experts that will talk to you are both experts in their field and representing a segment of the ecosystem that prevails in defense, and this is great for Assets Plus to gather these colleagues here. The first person to address the audience this afternoon is going to be Barry Conroy. He's a former colleague of mine. Prior to joining the university in Nice, I used to work in the European Commission, and this DG DEFIS, where he operates now, is really the place where the European Union is implementing, or through which the European Union is implementing its strategy as regard to defense. So, Barry, thanks for being with us, and I leave you the floor for your words.
Thank you very much, Michel, and good afternoon to you all. Firstly, I'd like to thank you all very much for the invitation to speak to you this afternoon. I'm very much delighted to participate in this event. As Michel said, my name is Barry Conroy, and I work in DG Defence, Industry and Space, where we deal with the rollout of the European Defence Fund, amongst other things. Just a few words on why we see the development of skills so important to the Commission in general, and in particular to our Directorate. Many of you will have heard our Commission President and our Commissioner saying that we need to take EU defence to the next level. This means, amongst other things, working closely together to develop high-end defence capabilities using leading-edge technologies. And when it comes to developing these state-of-the-art technologies, the ones that we all accept are central to the EU's efforts to developing its own freedom to act, we will need to have the right skills available. Skills in emerging and disruptive technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning are two of the technologies that are and will continue to be essential for defence in the coming years. As you know, artificial intelligence is the main fuel enabling the autonomy of systems, an issue which is very relevant in light of this year's theme. To be a player in this field and to avoid generating new dependencies that could impact on the EU's strategic autonomy, we need to strengthen the quality and volume of people having STEM and ICT skills. In addition to forecasting what skills we need to develop, these new technologies, we also need to focus on replacing those skills that will be lost to the defence industry in the coming years. This means that as well as competing with other global powers for these skills, we also are competing with other EU industries, such as civil industry, to attract the brightest and the best to work in our sector and to contribute to the sustainable development of our defence industry. It is therefore really important that we communicate these messages to all of our stakeholders throughout Europe and that we make the connection between working in defence industry and our own security. We know we have a lot of work to do here, but we also know that there's a lot of work underway. This is why initiatives such as this challenge are invaluable and ones that we in DEFIS are more than happy to attend and participate in. I'm sure that this challenge, coupled with work in other areas of skills, will help raise awareness amongst young people of the many and varied opportunities the defence sector can offer. It will certainly help bring fresh ideas on work approaches to the defence community. This, I believe, will help build a pool of young, dynamic, innovative talents that the sector so badly needs. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to commend the work of the Assets Plus initiative. Your drive and leadership is hugely appreciated, not only on this initiative, but also in your work in helping to implement the European Defence Skills Strategy. I very much look forward to seeing your insights on this important area. I'm confident that some very exciting and creative submissions await us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barry. Thank you. Definitely, I mean, both the Assets Network and the ones who participate in the challenge, they ought to follow and to monitor what's happening in Brussels these days. And so this is definitely something that I urge all of you to do. Keep track of what's coming up, a lot of initiatives. The recent developments in Ukraine obviously are going to accelerate the work in the Brussels institution. So thank you again for being with us. The first representative from industry, Benjamin Punge, is, and I hope I am not doing too badly with your last name. Sorry, Benjamin.
That's all right.
You're going to correct that. Is going to address you now. Benjamin is the head of Unmanned Aerial Systems with AIRBUS Defence and Space. I mean, you all know the huge role of AIRBUS Defence and Space in the defence industry in Europe. In the past, from what I understand, you've been involved and working with AIRBUS helicopter in France and Spain and Germany. Maybe you've been posted in near Nice at some point of that career. I think you've got a facility there. So thank you for being with us. I also realized that you're not only an engineer in the field, but also you've been involved. You've graduated with an MBA, which is a double skill, which is quite important, I think, and yeah, that can serve as an example also for the students who are currently competing within this challenge. So Benjamin, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Michel. Thank you for the introduction. One correction, otherwise my boss will be mad at me. I'm not head of UAS, but only of the portfolio management of unmanned aerial systems. So there is one above me responsible for the overall.
I promoted you a bit quickly, so.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I brought some slides, but I think I will take some more time for a bit of an introduction of how I see things at the moment. because the aerospace sector is changing at a tremendous space at the moment. We call it the third revolution in aerospace. By 2019, we had the first time 10 times more commercial drones in the sky than manned aircraft. Airbus has launched OneWeb, this constellation of 900 mini satellites, which is planning to bring internet to everyone, similar to Elon Musk's Starlink organization. And this is also a tremendous change because we used to produce around 15 satellites per year. For OneWeb, the production will be more of 15 satellites per week. And these figures show a little bit this fundamental shift, and it probably 5 years before it has been easy to predict where the sector was growing. If you ask me now where we are in the next 5 years, I would struggle to predict that because it's such a fast pace, and there are some key drivers driving that change. First of all is the new technologies that you've already touched upon, autonomy, artificial intelligence, electrification, data analytics, and this mixed with abundant venture capital, which is available to boost competition to, let's say, the incumbent players such as Airbus Defence and Space. And in the past, the competitors that master these technologies have already disrupted traditional industries, newspapers, taxi companies, music industry. So who's next? Maybe the aerospace industry is, maybe the car manufacturers are. And then there's tremendous economic and demographic growth. So the growing middle class in Asia is demanding access to travel, is demanding access to the same freedom of movement that we enjoy. And we have the tremendous challenge of building a sustainable aerospace world also. So we need to be more climate friendly, and this will also be part of the defense and security background that we have to work in front of. And then you have obviously policy and regulation. I mean, the last years with unfortunately Brexit, but also a looming trade war with the US, which has limited the movement of aerospace parts for a while. All these are backgrounds that you have to work in front of when you grow in the aerospace industry and if you plan a career in the defense industry. So what would be the recommendation? I think the main recommendation, and I think I share that with many of the other speakers here this afternoon, is embrace the change. You are really the generation that has the skills and the background to be effective in this modern environment. But you have to be curious and open towards change. So don't stick to the beaten path. I mean, you have to go out and explore. You have to be curious, and I think you're good at that because you're fast in adapting to new things. I mean, now I'm talking here for 10 minutes. That's almost too long for you because the TikTok video is only 30 seconds. It's a pace that we will have. So be open, and that for the second one is learn and adapt. There is lots to master with these new technologies. STEM is key, but IT skills will also be key. Data analytics will be key. So be the driving force behind that. Because I have a quote from Charles Darwin here. It is not the most intellectual or strongest who survives, but the one able to adapt to the changing environment. And this ability to adapt to the changing environment, I think that's really the key to be successful also in the defense industry. So I wanted to use this introductory remarks to set a bit the scene, but also brought you some slides here and a little video of how we at Airbus DS see more or less the future. So we are, so to say, the incumbent player. We're used to large aerospace products and programs, often funded by governments. We are since 40 years in the unmanned space. Next slide, please. And we've seen lots of developments. I mean, UAS is part of defense and space. So Airbus has 3 divisions: commercial aircraft, helicopters, and defense and space. And in defense and space, we have military aircraft, space systems, and unmanned aerial systems. And unmanned aerial systems is really one of the key fields where we see the future of the aerospace and defense industry going. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just a bit of a summary. So next slide, please. These are the three streams that we're following. So we're working on autonomous capabilities because we see more and more that there's technologies needed which are independent of the actual platform, so independent of the vehicle that they work on. And one of the main technologies that we work here with is manned-unmanned teaming. We've done a few demonstrations here also in the past. And see this really as a field for growth and as really the future. We always say that the future is unmanned. There's many missions where we don't think it's wise and still appropriate to put a pilot or a soldier in harm's way. So machines can easily do that. We always say it's the DDD missions, so dull, dirty, and dangerous. Are the ones that should be done by unmanned systems. Next slide, please. Yeah, our customers are coming from various backgrounds. I mean, defense is our home markets, I would say, but we're seeing more and more the need also in institutional customers and around public safety. So Frontex, for example, is one of our customers. But obviously, the home country, the armed forces of our home countries are really the main part of our business. Next slide, please. So this is something that I already said. The market in UAS is really heating up, and here there's really a change because we used to see ourselves really always as the pioneers, really innovating, driving change, bringing new technologies into application. But we see more and more that the commercial applications have overtaken us. If you see a DJI drone operating, maneuvered by unskilled everyone's, you see already what is possible in the commercial market. And sometimes now it's even for us the other way around. So we look at commercial technology and see how it can be militarized. Next slide, please. The key parameters, though, stay the same. We always say that the customer doesn't care about the drone. The customer cares about sensor over target or payload over target. And you have the classes of UAVs, mainly differentiated by these three parameters, so altitude, endurance, range, and payload. And that's the basics, so to say. Yeah, and the next slide, please. But there's obviously many applications. Here on the left, you see a tactical UAV that is assembled pre-flight and checked and launched in only 15 minutes, which is obviously helpful for disaster recovery, but also for mobile forces in the field. And on the right, you see a little bit the application of remote carriers, which is, I think, a good run over into the video that I brought. Looking at the time, I think it would be good to skip the next two slides and go directly to the video. Before we go there, obviously, happy to answer any questions also after this webcast. So along your project, if you come up with anything that you would like to know, I think that counts for most of the panelists here. We're absolutely open and happy to answer any questions that you might have along the way.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Just a question for the colleagues backstage. Do you have any questions from the attendants at this stage? I guess not. We'll catch up later anyway. I have myself a question that I will combine with a question to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Cristina Cuerno Rejado. She's a PhD and full professor in the Department of Aircraft and Spacecraft of the Faculty of Aeronautical and Space Engineering at UPM, Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. She's also the director of this faculty. Beyond her academic work, she's also on the board of the Spanish Civil Aviation Air Accident and Incidents Investigation Commission. So basically, if I understand correctly, there is a crash somewhere in Spain. She would be one of the few experts in a position to help analyzing the situation. We think of aircraft, but obviously we also think of drones in that situation. So quite interested to hear about what you have to tell the audience here, based on your experience, your teaching activities, and the more than 100 documents scientific documents that you've published over your career. Dr. Cuerno, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be taking part today in the European Defence Challenge second edition. Firstly, I would like to thank the organization of the event for inviting me to take part in it. And secondly, I would like to thank all the people who are listening during this event. Due to my background and the activities in which I am involved, my speech will be focused on the characteristics that an unmanned aircraft must meet in order to be safe. First of all, I want to establish a definition of an unmanned aircraft, although we have seen a lot of them in the previous video. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, or unmanned aircraft, and their associated systems are currently an expanding field of technology with many civil and defense applications. Until recently, they have been known as unmanned aircraft system, UAS, but currently the most interesting subset of the above is the AIRBUS, the remotely piloted aircraft systems. The dimensions, aerodynamic configurations, flight duration, range, and payload are very different in current AIRBUS, varying between the large AIRBUS with a weight greater than 14 tons and a payload greater than 300 kilos, to the small AIRBUS capable of being transported and launched by hand, on even the multiple design of very small micro and nano AIRBUS. AIRBUS could be defined generically as a system basically made up of an air segment and a ground segment. The air segment is made up of the air platform, the aircraft, the payload, maybe lethal or non-lethal, appropriate to the assigned mission, and part of the communication system. The ground system includes the control system for the aircraft and its payload, communication equipment, as well as the station that allows the information obtained from the sensors to be disseminated to different users, either directly or through different networks. Finally, the platform must be able to be launched and recovered with safety and integrity to be used again. At the very beginning, I told that my speech will be focused on the characteristics that an unmanned aircraft must meet in order to be safe. Well, now I want to point out that when saying to be safe, I was meaning to be safe during the operation. I am dealing with the air safety or the operational safety. And for the UAS to be safely operated, we need the aircraft to be airworthy. What implies to be airworthy? What is airworthiness? In a very general way, it could be said that airworthiness is the quality that contributes to an aircraft to being safe in flight. This depends, of course, on other qualities such as controllability, stability, performance, strength and structural stiffness, reliability of moving parts, precision and adequacy of flight instruments, and a lot of etc. The potential airworthiness becomes intrinsic to the aircraft during the stages of its design, from the conceptual design phase until it begins to be issued by an operator. It is achieved through the certification process that we could summarize as the set of tasks aimed at guaranteeing that the aircraft complies with the detailed airworthiness requirement contained in some regulations. The transition from potential to real airworthiness begins with the introduction of the aircraft into service, becoming evident in view of the behavior of the aircraft and its components on a day-to-day basis during operation and exposure to the operating environment. How is airworthiness determined? In the first place, the design must meet a series of essential requirements which are collected in the airworthiness codes. In this way, the design starts with an adequate level of safety. Later, the manufacturing process must also be controlled, and finally, the units that are sold to customers must be checked before delivery. Afterwards, during the life in service, the aircraft must always be in a condition to be operated safely, which is related to the maintenance tasks necessary to guarantee the safety of the operations. However, this is not the only thing that must be carried out. Other aspects must also be controlled to guarantee that safe operations are made, such as the conditions in which the various flight operations are developed. For this reason, it is necessary also that the safety authorities also promulgate regulations for operations. A first way of classifying aerial operations carried out by a manned aircraft could be into commercial, civil, and military categories. Within the commercial category, there will be all those operations of a professional nature in which some type of paid work is carried out. I'm thinking, for instance, of aerial photography, activities for crop control inspection, and so on. On the opposite side, we could find military operations, in which are those that would be entrusted to the defenses of the countries through their armed force. An intermediate situation would be that the so-called civil operations, within which professional operations are contemplated, but which are not carried out by companies or individuals, but belong to the responsibility of the state. For instance, immigration control, control of narcotic substances, border control, and similar tasks. Usually, civil and commercial operations are controlled by the civil aviation authorities, while military operations are controlled by the military authorities. Likewise, airworthiness aspects are also controlled by the corresponding authorities, whether civil or military. The responsibilities of these aviation safety authorities lead them to apply certification processes whose ultimate goal is to guarantee the safety of those who fly and those who are flown over. To this end, they issue certification regulations that apply to aircraft and facilities related to them. Therefore, the authorities have to carry out the following activities. First, guarantee the physical integrity of the aircraft in all conditions that may arise during its use, that is, the airworthiness certification. Also, to limit aircraft operation to those that can be safely performed, taking into account the operational environment, that is, the operation certification. Also, to ensure that people who build, operate, maintain the aircraft have the appropriate training and have the necessary means to do so, that is, the approvals for personnel. And finally, guarantee that the necessary support means exist to carry out the desired operation, that is, the infrastructure control. Countries with the greatest aeronautical activity are those who have developed the more efficient and coherent regulations. Additionally, the operation of the aircraft and each accident or incident are elements to be taken into account in order to evolve the regulations towards situations of greater safety without slowing down development. Therefore, and in conclusion, the regulation must take into account in a coordinated manner the design, manufacture, maintenance, and operation of aircraft, as well as of the facilities necessary for them, so that safety is always guaranteed at very high levels. Finally, and to finish, I would like to give some examples of certification regulation both in civil and military worlds. In the civil field, we have, for instance, the European Union, the regulation issued by the European Aviation Safety Agency, which is the European Union Aviation Safety Authority. In the United States, the Civil Aviation Authority is the Federal Aviation Administration, which issues the applicable regulation there. In the military field, each country issues its regulation differently, in some cases from the Defense Ministry or through a military authority or from the Air Force itself. In the particular case of the member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the organization itself establishes aeronautical certification regulations included in the STANAG standards as a way of standardizing the safety of aircraft and processes among all member states in order to increase air safety in joint military operations. And that is all. Thank you very much for your interest and your patience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have a question. In fact, which also relates to what was presented in the previous speech. In the previous speech, we saw these slides, and then the Airbus show that explains how all these aircraft, and not just the aircraft, but also equipment on the ground, and the drones and the US, they can communicate all together. and there were concrete examples taken in the presentations. I mean, names of type of airplanes, names of other kind of equipment. Is that work on certification and standardization still coming on time, or isn't that a bit too late? I mean, how do you reconcile the need for standardization and the current state of play that, as it was mentioned, evolves very quickly? So how do you cope with that?
Well, I think that standardization is something tremendously important in order to guarantee the safe operations, and it's especially difficult when you are mixing all those kinds of different platforms. Maybe some of them are unmanned and maybe some of them are manned. Then it comes the problem of the interoperability, in which you have to be able to communicate and to control, a good objective of the operation in a safe environment. Interoperability is something that is not new. From some years ago, there are a lot of people working in standardization, looking forward to obtain a good standard for interoperability in order to obtain all the good results that standardization gives to all engineering processes. Also, nevertheless, there are some new technologies, or maybe some new frameworks of working maybe in this future combat aircraft system that we have been seeing before. For instance, the combat cloud, that is something very, very new. So there is no standard that is available today in order to produce quickly a standardization process in order to have all the power of standardization to obtain these good results. So at this very moment, with the increase of new technologies that are going to be used in a very short term, maybe in some 5 or 10 years, is also a race for certification personnel in order to develop that so hard and good standards in order to allow these new technologies to be correctly used and built and well proven and feasible in order to be operated in a real scenario. So I think that everybody has to run.
Yeah, no, true. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. We're going to move to the next speaker, Captain Enrico Vignola, from the Italian Navy. So it's something important that requires I think, to be reminded to, especially to the young people looking into that sector. Defense is not just producers and sellers of equipment on one side and buyers on the other side. Defense is working on the base of 3 feet. You've got, in whatever order, you've got those who are the governments that are asking industry to build some equipment, but the equipment then is used by another branch of government, which is the military, in this case, the Navy. So it's important and that's always a delicate balance that needs to be found between these 3 kinds of actors, nationally and at European level. So thank you, Captain, for being with us. You are the Chief of the Space and Technology Innovation Department in the Italian Navy. I guess that what's the new things and the introduction of high-tech devices and solutions for the Navy, at least in Italy, is under your responsibility. Thanks for addressing the group here, and tell us more about this role and how it can develop at European level.
Yes, good afternoon to everybody, and a special salute to all the students connected. Well, I'm in charge of the innovation department of the Italian Navy, and I would add to this discussion a special perspective. I would like to talk about the underwater environment because it presents many challenges to be faced. At this time, we are developing an autonomous multi-mission underwater vehicle with high performance and extremely configurable and scalable profile, able to act as a frontline setup for all missions relating to the underwater warfare. This is one of the main projects we are developing in Italy, involving all the underwater community in Europe as well. What are the main challenges we are facing? Basically, we are studying a vehicle with a high endurance, which allow it to operate for several days before needing to interrupt the task. The second requirement is the ability to work in team with other unmanned systems or manned system. And as well, the ability to operate autonomously with mission profiles ranging from the tactical use, such as an integrated asset in naval force, or with area operations profile conducted in distant areas. Data collecting is another important requirement, as well as data processing capability. And last but not least, the capability to be integrated with the command and control system, which is very, very hard to achieve in the underwater environment. So, what I like to underline is that those operational requirements needs many technologies that already exists, but many technologies must be studied and achieved, and this is very important. In this regard, the role of young students and young talents is very important. We have many challenges talking about underwater communications, about the use of artificial intelligence, not so much for what we can imagine today, but for what the future will show us. And another sector is the modularity and reconfigurability of all assets. So I would close my brief intervention aiming that all young students could find in these operational requirements and technical challenges a good booster to face, together with military personnel, industries, research and academia, to face this challenge and find good solutions. And thank you.
Thank you very much. And indeed, you are highlighting the fact that young engineers can operate not only in industry but also with a variety of organizations. What about people with a lesser technology background, a lesser engineering background, but maybe with management skills, soft skills, related to the interaction among actors? I mean, are you definitely looking for engineers or tech people, or not just that kind of profiles?
I think that it is important to have good engineers as well as very good managers. I mean, good engineers and very good managers, because talking about disruptive technologies, we have so many initiatives all around the world that needs to be managed, to be put into the system. And so we need to face fragmentation and stuff like that. So a very good management is important as well.
Okay, thanks. Again, to the colleagues in the background, any question from the room so far? Not that I can hear about. So we'll move to our next speaker, Isabel Barthez, who is Deputy General Secretary of an industrial European trade union, which is called the European Trade Union Federation. That's a sectorial or multi-sector federation that gathers companies active in the metal industry, chemicals, textile, and energy sectors. Many sectors that contribute greatly to the defense industrial effort. You have experience as well in the trade union movement, and so it's quite of a horizontal competence that you acquired, an experience that you are willing to share. Can you tell us more about the issue of employment in the sector, the issue of career developments, all these sort of things that I'm sure your federation and your members must be facing every day?
Yes, well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it is, I would say, I'm extremely happy to be in. I think there was a slight problem. I froze for a second.
Yeah, you are back in now.
Yeah, I'm back in. Yeah, so I was actually explaining that Industrial Europe is a European trade union federation based in Brussels. One of our main role is to represent the voice of workers in our industries towards the European institution. And right now, the challenge of the transformation, what we call the twin transformation, green and digital, is one of our major challenges. And as you pointed out, we are representing workers in a very wide range of sectors, standing from energy, for chemicals, from textile, and also metal. And in the metal sector, we are covering the automotive sector, the steel sector, the ICT sector, and among others, the defense sector. And of course, among all these sectors, the defense sector is not like any other sectors. We are not producing consumer goods. We are not producing goods that are tradable like any goods. But nonetheless, we are representing an industry or workers in an industry which are essential to contribute to a sustainable, democratic, and a peaceful Europe. And I would say today, these are not empty words, actually. I mean, we know that we have a war waging at the border in Europe, actually. But I'm stressing this debate because some of you here might know that this whole notion of how the defense industry is sustainable has been subject to discussion at European level. So clearly for us, the defense industry is really a pillar of the security and peace in Europe. And we've seen the last couple of days that some member states have now decided to ramp up their effort and investing more into the sectors, because they also see the importance of the sector for the future, for the security in Europe. The second point I'd like to point out with you, and it's here, it's more with my trade union hat that I would do it, is to stress the importance of the quality of the jobs that the sector offer. I mean, these are, for us, for trade union, well-paid job, usually with good working condition, and some of you have mentioned it, that also offers some possibility of career development. But also the defense industry are usually high-tech sectors with also a lot of synergy with other civil industries. I'm thinking, for instance, in the aerospace sector, but also in the naval shipbuilding. So there is also a lot of commonalities with other sectors, and there are also a lot of possibilities to cooperate at international level in European project, but also in international projects. So I would say the multicultural environment is also very important. We have seen before the example of the SCAF. I mean, this is a European project which is bringing expertise from several countries, which means that as a worker, you have the possibility also to work at in this multicultural environment. So these are the points that I wanted to stress. Maybe to finish with the question of skills, because this has been touched upon by some of you. The question of the shortage of skills is dominant across all our the sectors where we are represented. And when it comes to the defense sector, I mean, this goes from, I would say, the skills workers, the blue collar workers, like the welders, that are extremely important for the sectors, to also the cybersecurity experts. But one thing is important is throughout the spectrum of job, the digital skills are extremely important. I mean, they are essential for all kind of workers. I was visiting 2 weeks ago a plant in Germany, a tank plant, and even at the shop floor, you would see people with tablets. So, I mean, the digital skills is extremely important, but also what we call more and more the transversal skills, like the social skills, because at the end of the day, whether you work in the innovation at the level of the R&D, or you work at the level of an engineering project, or even at the shop floor, the workers work more and more in teams, actually. So teamwork and capacity to work, skills to work in a teams are more and more happy.
We had lost you for a minute, so the last 30 seconds, I would say.
Really sorry about that. I think my connection is really poor today.
No, thank you very much. Well, in fact, you answer in the last 30 seconds I heard, you answered my question, which was going to be, well, among all these skills that seems to be missing, or at least that are scarce, which one is the one that you would say is the most urgent? So I hear that more skills in the digital world, and maybe more skills, more soft skills, to make sure that the workers and the engineers and the researchers are better equipped to work as teams. This is what's missing most.
If I may, very quickly, actually, because we had a few months ago, we had a seminar in the naval shipbuilding industry, and in the point was really made that skills are missed, whether they are it's what we call blue collar skills like welder, to the most expert person, whether it's cybersecurity. So, I mean, there is definitely a need for more expertise, for more people throughout the spectrum.
No, thank you. But so I have a follow-up question. Do you think that universities or other teaching institutions for blue collars, do you think that they are enough motivated to improve the curricula, to use that feedback that groups like Assets Plus and others are providing, or is there still a gap between what the people means industry, the governments, the military ones, and what the academia is able to offer?
I would answer by saying it really depends from one country to another. I was telling you that 2 weeks ago I was in Germany visiting a tank plant, and it was very easy to identify the apprentices. I mean, the young people that were there actually half in school, half in the plant, and you could tell that they were learning also in the spot. And in the metal sector, because here I'm talking at the level of the sector, and I'm sure if employers also from the metal sector would be there, they would say the same. I mean, we need more apprenticeship, but we need more also quality apprenticeship. And this is exactly what you're pointing out, is also the VET providers have to improve. I mean, they have to be more in line with the demands of the sector. And this is a challenge, because this is what we hear often from some countries, is that the skills that are acquired in these schools are actually not up to the requirement of the company. So there is really a need to establish, I would say, a debate, which is, I mean, a discussion which is in real time between the need of the companies and the VET providers, that have to be able to adjust their curricula. I mean, it is a challenge, but I mean, in some countries, some sectors, it works.
Thank you very much. I see that now we're getting more and more questions in the background. We'll address one major one, but maybe after the last speaker. The last speaker will be on video. We're talking about Dr. Dorota Stadnitka, who is an associate professor at the Restov University of Technology. She will organize the next edition of the European Defence Challenge, so she's definitely willing to understand and to see in an exhaustive manner how things are happening this time. She has sent a video message, so I leave it to you guys to show the video, and I'll come back later.
Thank you, Mateo, for introducing me. Good afternoon, everyone. The topic of this year's challenge is very important because we allow unmanned systems to enter our lives more and more. This year's challenge focused on how unmanned systems can interact with humans in the field of defense operations. We focused on this issue because unmanned systems can support people in the most demanding and dangerous operations, thus reducing the risk to human health and life. Similarly, in industry, by introducing unmanned autonomous systems, we will relieve employees by taking them from hard, monotonous, or dangerous work. In both of these cases, as well as in others where we use unmanned systems, the basis is the trust that we must place in machines supported by artificial intelligence. And it is not only about the applied algorithms for the operation of unmanned systems, but also about preventing unauthorized people from influencing these systems. As you might guess, one of the key elements of this technology is cybersecurity. Therefore, in the next challenge, we will be focused on this topic, that is cybersecurity, threats identification, and defense strategies. We mean threats in the field of defense industry, military equipment, auxiliary equipment, information flow, data protection, military operations, and others in the context of cybersecurity. We would like to invite students to take part in the next challenge that will be announced this summer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dorota. Yeah, indeed, definitely, cybersecurity is a hot topic, and is really worth addressing in this challenge. Not the elephant in the room, but the bear in the room. There are a few questions that all relate to one matter. What's happening now in Ukraine is changing the way countries, and we see that by the day or even by the hour, announces of the huge increase of the defense budget in Germany, Switzerland considering to abandon neutrality or de facto abandoning neutrality, Finland considering to enter NATO, Ukraine itself moving towards the European Union, or at least, so I mean, this is obviously impacting the sector, the domain. How in your respective areas of activities, all speakers, how do you see that? I mean, it's only perspective and guessing at this stage, I suppose. But how do you see in the industry, as regard to promoting the sector in the universities? How do you see that impacting in the short term?
Okay, perhaps I can answer this question for a while. Of course, things happens, and always that something happens, it is important to learn things. I think that this conflict with Ukraine has awakened in Europe the importance to be working in our own defense, to be independent of third parties. And well, I think for sure this will impact in the budget of the countries, and in the view countries are looking at defense and defense industry. And also I think we are also going to learn something about not only organization and balance and politics, but also about technology, because in this when these conflicts appear, there is some occasion where we see a lot of technology in action, and I think it is important to be prepared to respond to this kind of events, because unfortunately the best way to guarantee peace is to be prepared for keeping the peace, this peace by technology and by our own sovereignty means. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, And anyone else wants to react or give
Yeah.
his or her own insight on that? Isabel?
Yes, I can share. I mean, this is of course not a really final statement here, but as I said, you know, I mean, we're now moving from a discussion where a number of countries, a number of people were saying, well, do we really need to invest into defense? Do we really I mean, shouldn't we invest in other activities? And as I said, for us, it was as Mateo just said. I mean, this is an essential element of the peace and security in Europe. At the same time, we have to be cautious, careful that this doesn't lead to some kind of escalation of investment into the defense sector, because I mean, we know where this could lead, but also we know that these investments are taken place at the expense of other expenses. So, I mean, it's important to strike a balance. But at the end of the day, today, I mean, yeah, I mean, we realizes how important this strategic autonomy is. At the same time, when you are faced like someone like Mr. Putin, does it always help to have the highest level of equipment? We also at some point need to make peace, actually, and we need to find a new international order.
Thank you. We're gonna leave that question now. I mean, I'm sure that the near-term developments will continue to impact. But to go back to more pragmatical issues and things, we have received a question from a student researcher in the field, and the question is mostly to the industry representatives or people in academia, in research labs. In many instances, the projects that the students have in mind require for some testing. Industry, research labs, you have test benches of a variety of natures, obviously. I mean, are you willing? Are those from these two components of the sector, so industry, research centers, and academia? Are you willing? Are you offering space and test benches for the students to test what they propose? I mean, how far are you in that with respect to the assets challenge itself, but maybe also with local universities or with other partners?
Well, I can give my own experience. We don't have currently at our university any special field to try or to perform flight testing on any unmanned aircraft system, but we can use other areas in which you can ask for an authorization to the Spanish Civil Aviation Authority to give you the permission to fly there. This is a process that is open through the web page, so you can ask for a permission, or even you can join another organization who have some kind of time of this kind of airfields or locations in which to fly. Additionally, we have currently two special sites, one in Galicia and the other one is in Andalusia, that are prepared for research, testing and operation of unmanned aircraft, and are being used currently for many research projects and industrial projects. So more or less, if you are a student or researcher, you join a group who has some kind of projects, it's not so difficult to hire some kind of time to fly there.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Cristina. I'm trying to get my screen back on. I was checking. Indeed, there are a number drone experiment facilities across Europe. In most countries, I mean, in all countries, there are some. So an answer to the students could be to do a bit of background research to see whether there is a facility nearby, and I'm pretty confident that all those who need one will find a solution there. We also have a question, most probably for Captain Vignola. Are drones an actual threat to EU defense? And in particular, an issue which is particularly close to my heart. What are the prospects of a swarm of drones being really a threat, not just to defense, but to the society at large?
Well, for sure, drones are an actual threat for EU defense, as well as all disruptive technologies. We can see them both as an opportunity to develop military capabilities, and not only military, but at the same time, they are a threat also because, as you well know, the access to those technologies is quite wide. So their low cost, reasonably low cost, make them to be by mostly everyone. And about the underwater unmanned platform, it is possible to establish a swarm. Now we are studying and making experimentation campaigns. Every year in Portugal, we make a big experimentation campaign to test communication and command and control facilities and protocol. So my answer is that it is possible, but differently from what we can see now for ground and aerial vehicles, which have a quite sophisticated mean of communication. For underwater systems, the technologies for underwater communication are still under experimentation and development. I think that in the next 5 years, more or less, we will have something very practical under our hands.
Thank you. Yeah, I was also wondering, the question, I mean, is for anyone, and that's my question. In the race between improving drone capabilities and anti-drone measures, where do we stand now? I mean, a few years ago, basically, there was no anti-drone capability, at least aerial drones, available. Now we see that some are in place and quite efficient. I was reading an article about what's happening in Ukraine right now, and the article was comparing the situation during the first Ukraine war, so in 2014, and now it seems that the drones that have been deployed in Ukraine had been much less efficient than a few years ago, or that their equivalent a few years ago. Does it mean that the anti-drone capabilities are catching up on the drones, or how would you qualify that? Generally speaking, obviously.
Yeah, generally speaking, I can say that the anti-drones capabilities are developing. If you think that now we can employ lasers or effectors that are different from the conventional guns, and we can also employ drones in anti-drone role. So we are talking about very complex systems. I think that this statement about the effectiveness of drones in Ukraine is related with anti-drones capabilities.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That was for my own understanding as well. Looking at the watch, I think that we are getting towards the end of the Q&A session. Professor Fantoni, Gualtiero, you will address the. I will give out the floor, and you will close the meeting. Let's say that if there are a couple of questions coming up later or during the few minutes that follow, you will address them. Okay. Yeah.
Michel, maybe the last question, just to clarify about underwater communication, do we absolutely require underwater communication? Could we have an autonomous submarine that would circumvent this requirement? Yes, if we have an autonomous system that can operate without any order or without providing any information to the end user, we can, and we have. But this is a mission different from the one we are talking about. We are talking about swarms. We are talking about underwater vehicles that needs to provide information or to take information from the man in the loop.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, I had overlooked that specific question that came up afterwards. So thank you very much for the precision.
Okay.
Gualtiero, I leave it to you.
Thank you, Michel. I would like to thank you all for having attended the meeting of the Asset Plus European Defense Challenge. I would like, first of all, on behalf of Asset Plus, thank the students that demonstrate a very high interest. Also, the questions are very related to what they did. They demonstrated a good commitment and a very high level of quality of the work they did. For sure, the European Commission that is with us today and the expert who provided several nuances on what unmanned vehicles are and could be. We saw different perspectives today, from swarm and system of system to full life cycle of unmanned vehicles. We discussed about standardization of a flying object, for sure, identified flying objects. And also underwater, the problem related to coordination of assets and people. And at the end, even if they are unmanned, men's and women's are important because we need high-tech, digital, and transversal skills to design, control, and manage unmanned vehicles. So I would like to encourage also our students to think about the fact that unmanned vehicles are at the convergence of different technologies. Let me say batteries and electrical motors to cite few, and also are at the convergence of different interests. If we think about the military, but also logistics, industry, and also amateurs that are very interested in drones, whatever they are, aerial or underwater or flying on the surface or moving on the surface. This interest and this convergence is making the cost decreasing and the performance increasing. So these hardware are following the Moore's very famous law that works for chips, but also is working for drones as well. So think also about the societal and economical aspect related to what you are working on to for the European Defense Challenge. I hope that the seminar of today could be the launchpad for the second phase of the challenge. And for sure, I wish you a bright career in the defense sector. Thank you and goodbye.